Final superpower that we're going to be looking at is the power of goodness. The important feature of goodness is that it's something that we intentionally create. All of the other experiences here are not intentional. In general, when we see something, we don't do it intentionally. Maybe we just happen to see the wall, like I'm looking at right now. I just see a wall. I didn't mean to see a wall. I opened my eyes and I saw a wall. Or I closed my eyes and I just, for whatever reason, happened to see a banana. Actually, 3 bananas in a bunch. Why? I don't know. I didn't mean to do it, but it just happened. Hearing, I'm hearing my voice. And while I'm intentionally saying things, I'm not intentionally hearing those things. I'm hearing the heating system right now. It's quite cold here in Vermont right now. The heater is on and I'm hearing it. I didn't mean to hear it, but there it is. Right now I'm feeling the key, the pad here, the mouse pad. Why? Well, because I was trying to move the cursor, but I didn't mean to then feel what I'm feeling. Not choosing that, but there it is. And I have a sense of curiosity about that, but again, not because I tried to. I'm just sort of curious about the texture of it. Incidentally, why am I so curious? Well, I'll tell you why I'm curious. It's because I'm using my focusing skills. And when you're focused on anything, then what do you know? That thing comes out for you. You focus on feeling something, and it arises out. In this case, of course, I'm focusing on feeling something on the outside in the material world, focusing out, and this becomes very interesting. I get an insight about it. But enough about that. To return to the original point, these things generally happen unintentionally. But in one case they happen intentionally, and that is when you're using the superpower of goodness. So, how does that work? Well, you bring goodness into your power field, which is kind of what this little special area is going to signify. In bringing goodness up, you bring up a power. What's a classic way that this is done? Well, prayer is a classic way that this is done. We bring up in our mind, internally. We'll use this as our current skill right now. Internally, we bring up good. How? Well, by praying. We pray. Maybe we pray to God, or we pray to Bodhisattva, or we pray to Wakan Tanka, whatever it is that we're going to pray to. We pray. And we hear in our minds something good. Something good. That's one way that we can do it. There's another way in terms of internal goodness, and that is we see something. Perhaps we see a good being, an archetype. We see a picture of the Virgin Mary, for example, or of Avalokiteshvara, or Kashilagarbha, or Tankashila. We see something beautiful, something magnificent, something inspiring. Perhaps we don't do it in the same way that I've been saying. The 2 examples I've given so far are often considered to be forms of prayer. But perhaps we just imagine saying something good to someone, and we hear ourselves say that good thing to someone, and we see them at the same time. We plan out something good that we can do in the future, and seeing it and in hearing it. All that's happening inside of our minds. Well, what might happen when we're doing all that? When we're praying or when we're planning out something good? If it really is good, then there's a good chance that we're going to feel good. We're going to have an experience of feeling wonderful. Again, on the inside. And that is very meaningful. when we can get to the point where we feel good, then we can begin to experience something quite magnificent, quite powerful. There can be a deep change in our behavior, for example. Now, what would happen if there was a change in our behavior? In that case, there would be something good that's happening on the outside in terms of our activity, in terms of the way we appear to people, in terms of the things that we actually say to people. These are all good things that happen on the outside and are often considered to be forms of service. And I would say that this is the ultimate purpose of spirituality. Doesn't mean that we want to take a shortcut there. There is a long path for many people in order to get there, but for other people there isn't such a long path. And they work towards service immediately. That's very good. Don't be surprised if you're one of those people. Don't be surprised if that changes and your focus moves away from service and back into something internal again. That's quite common. And in fact, the work that we do on the inside and the work that we do on the outside, these must work in concert. In the Buddhist tradition, this part, the inner part, is sometimes called sadhana, and the outer part is sometimes called seva. The work that we do on the inside and the outside. Seva is related to the word service in English, to come to the point when we can see that work, such as focusing on what we see, on what we hear, on what we feel, and focusing to the point that these things become increasingly revealed to us. We focus in on them, and then we see that they become revealed. They come out in a new way. We observe these things very carefully. That's a kind of sadhana. On the other side, it's possible that that isn't what we're going to do at this time. We may do some other thing. We may observe a deep state of rest. We may disappear completely. We may experience great energy and flow. That's possible. May focus on that in a new way. Or it's also possible that we don't work on focusing so much, but instead we work on allowing. And we allow perhaps these all to be exactly as they are and work through them and release them. And in so doing, we experience a kind of an insight. Now that insight must not end there. That insight progresses. What does it progress into? Well, it progresses into goodness on the inside and on the outside, both how we personally feel and the service we give to others. Now the final point I'd like to make is that I mentioned that this goodness is something that happens intentionally. That's the significant part. That's how it's different from everything else. It's something we intentionally create, we intentionally nurture, we intentionally hold, we intentionally cultivate. There is one situation, however, in which this does not happen intentionally, and that is when we completely disappear, when there is no self, when we are completely gone, and in fact when the world disappears as well. When everything, both inside and outside, completely vanish. At that point, when there is nothing left whatsoever, when inside is gone, outside is gone, and gone is gone. In that case, there is only one thing left. Everything is gone. Somehow out of that, goodness arises. How does it arise? I have no idea. But somehow out of this complete nothing, it arises. It's incomprehensible, inconceivable, and yet we experience it. Unintentional perfection comes out of us into the world. It comes out of the world into us. And the duality between inside and outside loses its footing and retains its use.